welcome again to this Pokemon Battle demo. Yeah, just to reiterate, there are a couple objectives I want you all to get out of this. First, just reinforcing the key Anaplan concepts that you've been learning in a very fun way through this Pokemon Battle demo. And then secondly, to highlight some business planning features that Anaplan has that ideally any business planning solution would have. So let's jump right into it. Everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. You're great. All right. So that's very important. So this first set of exercises I have for y'all is all about imagining what the model and app might look like. When we get to like seeing the demo, I want it to feel like you've had a part in building it. So that's why we're doing these interactive exercises first before seeing the relevant content in the app for it. Okay, so first, is anyone here not familiar with Pokemon very much? Okay, we're all nerds.
I don't really know much about Pokemon.
Okay, sure, fair enough. So yeah, let me go over the game design first before we start talking about the model and app design, just so that we all have that foundation to build off of together. So it all boils down to there are two players that play at a time. They each have a roster. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. They each have a Pokemon roster that they're bringing into battle. And the objective is to be the first one to deplete all of the health points or HP of your opponent's Pokemon in any given battle. Now, so of course, like pre-battle actions is that bringing in that Pokemon roster within the battle, and each round in that battle, you have a set of decisions to make around either swapping, choosing one of your remaining Pokemon to use, and fighting, choosing which one of up to 4 moves to use for any single Pokemon that's active. Okay, and then the parameters that you see kind of accumulate is the damage being done, which will depend on the interaction of the attributes from both your Pokemon that you have active and your opponent, as well as the move that is in use currently. All right, any questions about game design before we start thinking through model and app design? All right, sounds like we're on the same page. So here, let's just popcorn this out. So what might the user experience app look like? Or in other words, reading this game design, what pages would you expect to see?
Maybe the names of the battlers.
Yes, yeah, definitely somewhere we'll have to see, who's battling exactly.
What about the 6 that you have and the 6 the opponent has? The options?
The options that you have and the options the opponent has?
Yeah, before you select the 3 or 4, depending on double battles or single battles.
Okay, so you mean kind of like setting the options for the game itself before you jump inside. Okay, that's yeah, definitely a very fair consideration. Yep. Anything else?
The location of the battle.
To piggyback off of what was just said, I was going to, I guess, mention there being a page for people to like select who they want as a part of their roster.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely necessary. Good. And then there was another person jumping in too. What were you going to add?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I was just going to say a place. I'm not as familiar with this as some of you. So I was just going to say a place to have the battle. Like, where's the battle going to take place?
Yeah, very great observation too. You definitely would expect there to be a scene of some sort. Yep, great.
Would you want some type of maybe like a chart or something to look at the health points of each of the players in the battle to see like what's being depleted and like just some type of visual graph or something just to see the health points of each opponent and player?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that goes hand in hand with that scene that Janine was referring to. So it sounds like y'all covered a lot of bases. I think moving forward, I only wrote like a few, just kind of sample pages, like one to initiate the game that captures the like who's playing. It also could capture like the pre-game settings, like how many Pokemon are you able to choose and that kind of thing. For my demo purposes, I just made it a default choose 3 Pokemon. As someone mentioned, choosing the Pokemon roster. As someone mentioned too, kind of seeing, like the place where the battle takes place and the results as decisions are made. So very good. Let's move forward. Now, what lists might be necessary based off the same game design and based off of the UX pages that we expect to see?
What types they are?
Yes. What types? What is? Can you be more specific?
Like electricity, grass, fire, water, etc.
Okay. Good.
Also the moves.
Yeah.
So maybe that could be the moves also have their types and they'll be underneath in the structure underneath. That would be the child of the types, I think. I don't know. I'm just
So for now, I appreciate you.
okay. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, the hierarchy is it can get little complicated. So for now, I'm just looking for like just the list.
Okay.
Yep.
Types. That's where I go with.
Okay. You said types and moves. What else? Feel free to pop in, anyone.
The Pokemon.
Yep, the Pokemon. Exactly.
Maybe what kind of items you have?
Items such as what?
Oh, like healing potions, stuff like that.
Oh, okay. That's definitely beyond the scope of this demo. But that's definitely how the real game would work. And if this demo were representing the real game to that extent, then yeah, that would definitely be a list. Yeah, good. Can I get one more?
Attributes.
So attributes would be attributes of what exactly?
Like the attributes of the Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so attributes aren't necessarily lists. Even though they very well could be list formatted. So yeah, so if someone mentioned like types, and someone mentioned like having a types list and a Pokemon list. And so the type would be an attribute of the Pokemon, and the type would also be, formatted as a list. Yeah, so the great like kind of nuance in there. Like, yes, you can use lists for dimensions, of course, for your modules, but you can also use them in list formatted line items as well. All right, so we covered a lot here. Only other things that I've jotted down just as samples. Of course, this is not exhaustive, but just the users themselves, which actually y'all know is native. It's already in the model. It's just that in this demo, like we make another kind of non-native users list too. And then which rounds are we talking about? So that's that was key in just kind of keeping track of like which Pokemon was in which round, and so that you can look up, the last time they were in and what was their HP when they left off and that kind of thing. All right. And then let's get a few examples for this, like what modules might be necessary. And we started talking about that just a little bit.
A player module,
Say more.
like player details. to try and combine those lists together, information regarding just the player.
Yeah, that's very fair. What else?
Will there be time, like which round it is?
So that will be kind of simulated by the rounds list. Yeah.
Would it
What about
be-
scorekeeping or
Yeah.
something like that?
Yes. Yeah, definitely scorekeeping, both within any game and kind of like, while it's going on, and also kind of overall like a cumulative scorekeeping of your wins and losses and that kind of thing. Yeah, good.
Would it be damage calculations?
Yes. Yes. That is a big one. Yep. Good. All right. So let's just highlight. I got a couple examples here. There are tons of modules in the demo, but definitely we have to have some place where users make their decisions. And then yes, as someone said, how much damage gets dealt. Okay, very good. All right, so this next set of exercises, here I have a handful of module descriptions, and my task for you all is to tell me, we can go one by one, which part of the disco does it pertain to? So can someone first just tell me what disco stands for?
Data
I'll
is
give
a
it a
mod.
shot.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Stephanie, yeah.
Data, input, systems, calculation, and output modules.
Okay, good. Any questions about disco before we start applying it? All right. So Leah, let's go ahead and go through it. So this first module determines how much damage gets dealt each round in battle. What kind of module would you think that is? And this is it for anyone to pop in and answer.
Calculations.
Yep, absolutely. And that's exactly how you said it before. So yeah, calculations for sure. All right, next one. Allows users to select which Pokemon and move they will use in a battle round.
Inputs.
Yep. Shows how many health points your Pokemon have throughout the battle.
Data?
Is that calculation
or output? I can't decide which.
Yeah, see, yeah, I hear a few, I hear a few different kind of takes on it. So can someone, I think I heard data, inputs and outputs, maybe. But can someone tell me why you think it could be what?
So I think it would be calculations because it's a how many.
Would it be outputs?
And so why outputs?
Because that's the result after every calculation.
Yes, very good. Yeah, so so great observation in that this is definitely connected to a calculation, like this top line here, but showing the results. And someone mentioned kind of like having that in a nice chart or something like that. That goes hand in hand with this too. It's more like how you show it, rather than like the calculations getting to that. So we kind of distinguish those types that way. Yeah, so very good. Thank you. Okay, now stores all Pokemon and their default attributes. Which one would you think for that one?
Data.
data?
Okay, good. And finally, contains mappings used throughout the model.
System.
Yes, good, very good. All right, so now let's move right along. Just to remind you, the objective here is to highlight a few Anaplan features that any business planning solution would ideally have. There are a few things I want to point out throughout both sets of demos. And so those things are the ability to create scenarios, compare them, and then commit to the best scenario, the ability to monitor performance visually. And I'll showcase the new management report page, which allows you to overlay graphics. And then finally, adaptive recommendations for the best course of action based on the current actuals and on the leverage you have available. All right, so let's go to new game so we can kind of start from the beginning of this app. All right, now many business planners will want to add members into lists such as like employee list or product list. And so similarly, this is where you can add users here, and you can add games here. All right, so any users you add will pop up here. Any games you add will pop up here. Yep. All right, and then these are using list imports specifically. So just want to point that out. All right. So I already have about someone you said like, okay, we want to see where we're playing. So this is kind of hinting at that. So I've selected a battlefield already for this demo purposes. All right, so we'll move forward. Now here I begin to show the scenario planning, since many clients will want to create scenarios and configure different plans for each. Now in this game, each scenario is really a roster to be comprised of the Pokemon I select. So if I wanted to create a new scenario, I would do that here. This is another list import. Now I'm selecting a specific scenario, which in this case is legendary birds. And now I have 55 Pokemon to choose 3 from to form my roster. All right, now each Pokemon, so we highlight Zapdos here. Each Pokemon has a set of 7 or 8 attributes such as types and then stats pertaining to them. And they also have a set of up to 4 predetermined moves, which each have 4 attributes of their own, such as type, category, power, and power points or number of uses. All right, so all of these, and they're like 495 moves, kind of like overall. So there's some variation there for sure. All right, so now the attributes of the Pokemon and of their moves factor into the calculation of how much damage this Pokemon does using this move. And so I want to point out some favorable examples on how this will come into play later. So what I like is that the type of my Pokemon matches the type of moves that it has. I'm going to focus on Zap Cannon. So electric and electric. I get an attack bonus for that. I also like that this Zap Cannon is categorized as special, which corresponds with the very high special attack stat that Zapdos has. And then finally, I like that the power of Zap Cannon is super high. Granted, I can only use it a handful of times, but I do like having that much power in my disposal. Now, what I'm uncertain about is anything pertaining to the attributes of the opposing Pokemon. So the lower the opponent's special defense, we can just pretend it's a different Pokemon. The lower their special defense, the more favorable a special attack will be for me. And then if the opposing Pokemon is a water type, for example, against my electric, then my electric move would do more damage than it normally would. Okay. All right, so now that I've made my scenarios, chosen my rosters, so here is where I begin to compare my scenarios, since many times clients will want to know which of their scenarios is the right option to move forward into production. So particularly I've shown how you can compare different metrics all at once. So in this case, we see that it's not just the highest stat average that is a single determinant, but also the average move set effectiveness and the average resistance plays a part in the overall desirability of any particular roster. All right. So Now, once, so we'll point out that there's the same kind of parallel of certainty versus uncertainty. Like I'm certain about, you know, my stat averages and how it compares to my other rosters, but I don't know how effective that will be against the opponent roster's stats, as well as, you know, like this target types and average resistance to the opponent's moves. Of course, depends on what the opponent has in their arsenal as well. Now, once you've committed to which roster you'll play with, essentially that roster gets assigned. You assign that roster to the game, and you start gameplay. So before we go to the battle, let's flip back to our interactive exercises. All right, so this next set of exercises is all about security, which some of you might have studied up a bit. I think this might have been in your lesson 1 as well, as one of our like breakouts that we've had on Saturday. So I just have a few examples here. And for each example, I want you to tell me whether I'm describing something more appropriate for DCA versus selective access. Now, who can tell me what DCA stands for and what does it refer to? Or maybe should we start with selective access and circle back to DCA? Okay, all right. So let me give a little foundation for us to work with for this exercise. So in general, selective access applies more for an entire list and dictates which users have access to which members of which lists. Okay, DCA stands for dynamic cell access, and that essentially modifies the security of a very specific cell or set of cells, however, you know, many ones you apply it to. You really apply a line item at a time, but it lets you hide that the contents of that line item, the value in that line item, under certain conditions that you specify. It also lets you prevent them from being writable, so that you can't enter values for any line item that you specify based on whichever conditions that you specify. Any questions about that? Those and kind of what the differences are? All right, so let's take a crack at it. Going for example number 1. So my security need here is that I'm preventing a user who isn't player 1 or player 2 for a given game from seeing what happens in that game. Does that sound more like a dynamic cell access security or more of a selective access security?
To me, that sounds more so like selective access.
You want to say why?
Well, it doesn't seem as if it's limited to a line item itself. It actually seems more so to the functionality. So like read and write access.
Yeah, so it's so both the read and write accesses are they're both relevant for dynamic cell access and selective access. Yeah, and I didn't specify that, so I'm glad you called it out. So with selective access, I can still specify whether someone can read a certain list, member of a list, but I can also specify whether they can write to anything pertaining to a certain list member of a certain list. But you are correct in saying that this is more of a selective access thing. It's not so cellular. We're not discriminating on a cellular line item level. We're discriminating on a list member level. Okay, good. All right, so second example where here we're preventing a user from selecting a move in battle unless they've decided to fight. Does that sound more like a DCA or selective access?
I think DCA, because they can see the other moves but can't select them.
Yes, yes, that is true. Yep, that's exactly how we're discriminating. And could someone add on to that, maybe? Because I want to differentiate more of this, like, since read write applies to both types of security, just want to be a little more detailed in that distinction. So I would say, so this line item makes it sound like the move, like in and of itself, is selectable. Like it's not like I'm not able to see this move at all. But my ability to write to this move is very dynamic. It depends on a certain condition here, like whether I've decided to fight already. So I would add on that to help make that distinction. Okay, but good, correct. And finally, I want to prevent player 1 from deciding what player 2 does. Does that sound more like a DCA or a selective access thing?
Selective access.
Okay.
And I say that because it's something that you want done for a greater scope, if you will, as opposed to move by move. It's like you don't ever want player 1 to decide what player 2 does.
Right. Yes. Very good. All right. Let's keep moving forward. So now, even more fun. This hour is pretty action packed. So let's move on to lookups. And I've gathered from my interactions with you all in office hours and the Saturday breakouts that you learn like very visually. So I expect this to be helpful, but at the very end, you tell me. So here, what I'm trying to do is find the Pokemon type of my opponent's active Pokemon. And so I have my target here. This is just a generic naming at the L2 level. And then I have the types listed here. So the source that I have for where this information would be stored is here. And it has the types that I'm interested in. But why would I have a hard time referencing this without a lookup in this case?
There's not a common dimension. Oh, go ahead, Kimber.
I was about to say the same thing. Go ahead.
Janine.
Okay, I was gonna say common dimension. It doesn't have common dimensionality. There's nothing, or at least that we can see that's in common in terms of the dimension.
Right, very true. Yeah, so the dimensions are indeed different. And when my target is at a level higher than my source, and I'm trying to like kind of narrow things down. Like I'm not like aggregating necessarily. I want to find something very specific. I have to specify exactly which one of these I need. So that is what my lookup is doing. Now let's use our imagination or what we've learned. What would be nice to bridge these two things, our target and our source? Like what dimensions would you expect our lookup to have, and what would you expect the line item to be in the format that it would have? Is it kind of tough to imagine without thumbing through your modules and that kind of thing?
Are you asking for something that essentially places the source and the target in the same place at the same time?
So we want to link them using a formula.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so as is, this would spit out an error because, you know, there's no like common dimension here
Okay.
that lets Anaplan like know what you're talking about, what you're really wanting. Yeah, so we need some kind of map that bridges the two. And so since I have more examples, let's just go ahead and do this one. And so typically, you know, just imagine, so typically it's like the target equals the source. And then in your parentheses, you have lookup colon the map. But the way this just makes sense, I think, visually, is to have the map represented here in the middle. If that makes sense. So notice here that the dimensions of my target match the dimensions of my map. Okay. And then the format of my map matches the dimension of my source. So this map is essentially bridging this source dimensionality with the target dimensionality. Okay. So let's look at example number 2 now. And this one actually is a little more complicated, but it is a cool, I think, learning takeaway. So here, what we're trying to do is find, okay, which of the opponent's Pokemon is active anyway? So the target here, we have our games, and we have the opponent's active Pokemon per game at any given time. And our source is telling us so notice that user A is me, user B is the opponent. So it's telling me for the opponent, this is the Pokemon that they have active. So what might our map look like? You want to take a stab at it? See, who haven't I heard from yet? Lashani, would you like to jump in?
Sorry, I'm not quite sure.
Okay, so what I felt was helpful in my breakout was just like almost like cold calling and seeing how people are thinking, and really what we revealed in my breakout session where we did that was very helpful. Like for other fellows are like, oh yeah, like I was thinking the same thing, and you know, the way we like resolved that was very helpful. So if anyone would be so brave, if you have any idea at all, please throw it out there so we can make it into a learning experience, unless it's right. Yeah, that could also be very well be possible.
So I'm gonna take a guess. I know I'm completely wrong, but since you're looking for the opponent's Pokemon, we have to go look at the source, and the key is to use the game, right? So let's say game A, the opponent's Pokemon is Charizard, and you connect it to your target game A. I don't know.
Keep going.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at game A, but there's 2 users, user A, which is you, and user B, which is your opponent.
Yep.
And because you're pulling the source to the target, that should be the lookup. So both of you will be having a Charizard.
So this is definitely confusing. So keep in mind, like user A is me, and my opponent's active Pokemon is Charizard. This user B is my opponent, and their active Pokemon is Charizard. So it's the same Charizard.
Oh,
reference here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
What's the significance of the game identifier? So you got game A, B, C, D for yourself, and then the other, for the opponent, and then for yourself, you have A, D, F, and H. What's the significance of those letters?
Okay, yeah, thanks for asking. So so I mocked these up, but so what I'm representing here is that so what's in game A, and game A like refers to the same game, like those are the two players in that game. So this game A and this game D corresponds to, like this game A and this game D for user B. So that leaves room for the reality that games B and C are played against an entirely different user. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you for clarifying.
Thanks for asking.
So, okay, follow-up question then. Following that logic, and this may be like totally off base, but would that also mean that user A, which is you, are you playing against user B for game D, or am I reading these charts incorrectly?
So maybe I should have had a different kind of like nomenclature. I think this is what's confusing. So users I have is just A and B. It doesn't, in and of itself, it does not indicate which game they're playing. Only yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
When and you probably said this already, but when the players choose their active Pokemon, is it exclusive? Like, obviously, well, it would have to be because they're characters, so they can't be on two different teams. So then, having said that, I would think you need a chart that shows all of the Pokemon and then whether they're active or not, or because if you don't have them, then the other, and it's active and it's not active to you, then that means the other person has it or something like that. So it's like a master chart of the Pokemon and whether they're active or not, or something like that.
Yeah, so that is going on behind the scenes. And that's what's giving rise to our source chart. Yeah, so what you're describing is more upstream of our source chart. That kind of master module that you described gets plugged into here for any particular game. Yeah.
So for the mapping, if I'm in the source and I'm playing a specific game like game A, then I need to do a lookup in the target based off the same game.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Who said that? Was that Kendra?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Yeah, so absolutely. Since my game is exactly the same, I do have a set of information that tells me which two players are playing that game. And I can indeed use that as a map. So I have the exact user game combination here that links to the opposing game of this opposing user, same game. And that's what makes the bridge in this case. Yeah. So thank you all for chiming in, contributing to that in terms of thoughts and questions as well. So let's keep moving forward. I do have an import example here before a little more demoing, and then leaving, 5 minutes or so for just any questions in general. So for this import exercise, now we're updating the opponent's health points based on damage that we deal. And so in my target here, this module, target module, is dimensioned by rounds, users, and Pokemon. Of course, it has line items. And my question to you is, in each row here, what goes there? I'll say like level 1 of options are this, like what we see more commonly is column headers and specific column. And these are the specific columns that you would use, or the row headers you would use. Okay. All right, so let's start with rounds. Okay, so keep in mind our task, we're updating the opponent's health points based on damage that we deal. Let's start with like level 1, part 1 of the answer. Which of these do we think we'll have to go with?
Would it be specific column latest round?
Yes, absolutely. Yep, great. And then next, which one would we expect to go into users?
I'd say player.
Why player?
What was that?
Why player?
So in this case, user is the person commanding the active Pokemon, correct?
Yeah, so there are two active Pokemon in play, one pertaining to the player, and then one pertaining to the opponent.
Okay, I meant to say the user controlling the player active Pokemon. So I'm assuming opponent active and player active is distinguished somehow. So that's what I meant, if you catch what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, there definitely is a distinction. Yep.
So that's why I'm saying you would source player as user.
I would,
Would it be opponent?
yeah, would it be opponent since we're updating the opponent's health points?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly why. And this is like intentionally tricky. This might be like one of the trickiest imports in the model. So yeah, you have to think very carefully about kind of keeping track of like what's your kind of reference point. Like I'm saying, okay, like damage that I deal is kind of like in a way, like you could say, yeah, that's the source. Like that's what's inspiring this whole import in the first place. But we have to keep in mind that the target that we're going for pertains to the opponent themselves. So our source line item or source column has to reflect that connection. Okay, so very good. Next one, for the Pokemon dimension, which source do we use?
Opponent active Pokemon?
Yep, absolutely. And then finally, for line items, what do we anticipate that mapping being?
Column headers? I don't know.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Good. Any questions about this before we move on? Okay, and let's hit it. So now the moment you've all been waiting for. This is the management reporting page that's relatively new as a layout page in Anaplan. And this is the one that lets you overlay graphics in a kind of neat way. But unfortunately, it doesn't allow the manipulation of data, like only displaying data. So it's for that reason I've had to create 2 separate UX pages for the battle. One being this reporting page for more of the battle scene and the graphics, and then a second one for like a battle dashboard where the decisions are actually being made and entered. Okay, now in this report page, we see that we are, yeah, like I said, able to overlay graphics. And essentially we're showing a competitive landscape, which reflects the cumulative outcomes of this battle in progress so far. To give some orientation, everything in the foreground pertains to current user. Everything in the background pertains to the opponent. These larger images pertain to the active Pokemon, my current user and my opponent. These smaller images of Pokemon pertain to who's on the bench. So notice that for my opponent, this Pokemon that's on the bench, we see there's a level of uncertainty reflected here because they haven't been thrown out in battle yet. So I'm not sure what card this opponent is holding in their hand on this one. And then finally, health points. So the colors indicate whether the health points are remaining or lost. So if the HP or health points bar is completely full, it will be entirely green. The more damage a Pokemon receives, the more red it becomes. Once it's defeated, it has absolutely no health points left. Bar becomes entirely red. Okay. So now we go on to the battle dashboard where those decisions are made. Now, since planners will want to know the best course of action that they should take, given current actuals, I've created visual recommendations in this dashboard to help users determine the best next course of action to take for each round or next couple rounds. So remember the gameplay. For each round, you have the ability to swap or fight. And so in this application, given who's on the field right now and which levers I have to pull, the recommendation I'm seeing is that I could very well benefit from using Zapdos and the Zap Cannon move, which we looked into earlier in the demo. So yeah, so the way we know this is simply by showing the damage that we can expect to do. So just calling that out. Now I want to point out that since clients will want to minimize risk by limiting data access to only users who need to read or write to it, reflected here is that I've built in selective access so that only player 1 or 2 can even see the game. And then for each player, I only see the Pokemon that I have available. I can only activate the Pokemon that I have. And then same for moves. I can only activate my moves. I cannot submit moves and Pokemon on my opponent's behalf. Okay, so now just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to act as if I'm going to do like 2 rounds in one. Just first choosing to swap, because currently we have Moltres. I want to get Zapdos. Notice that I can't click in here yet. So that's the example of the dynamic cell access that we explored earlier. So once I say I'm going to swap, I'm allowed to submit a Pokemon to swap, submit battle decisions. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead for demo purposes and fight. And now I can activate the Zap Cannon move. Okay, let's go back to the battle scene and check it out. All right, and we see that one Pokemon has been defeated. We see that health bar being completely red, and we also can be extra sure there's absolutely no sliver of green because we see this huge KO or knockout image overlaying. So what's kind of cool is that this image was really there the whole, or this graphic was here the whole time. It's just that whenever the Pokemon is not defeated, it's just blank. So you just don't see anything there. And then, once the Pokemon's defeated, you see it. All right. So of course, like the players would keep submitting decisions for each round until there's only one person standing. And that person will win, and then the battle records get updated with the win or loss accordingly. All right, so I think we have 5 minutes. What questions do you all have for me about anything? It could be demo specific, it could be more kind of model builder specific.
I don't know if I missed this, but how long, like from beginning to end, I think in an estimate of like hours time, did you spend on this? And more specifically, like what were the areas that you spent the most time trying to work through?
Okay, sure. Thanks for asking. Yeah, so I didn't track hours, but I definitely know the time I spent on it was 3 months. I was working on like other projects at the same time. And of course, anything like remotely client facing takes precedence. But this was a part of my onboarding experiences, and was encouraged for me to work on this. So yeah, so I would say 3 months. Yeah, 3 months essentially. And then the hardest part by far was not necessarily the calculation module. Like that was actually pretty straightforward, but it was everything going from the calculation to what we see here. And really, so really my director who I report to was the one that kind of got me past the hump of suggesting to add rounds, because I was trying to do iterations on top of just the game itself, and that wasn't working. So I had to have different rounds that kind of keep track of how many health points each Pokemon has, so that I could keep building or like referencing that. Yeah, so that was definitely the tough part, getting from, okay, I know how much damage is gonna be done. How do I keep track of how it flows from there? Yeah.
And that was more like more of a solution architect role or a model builder role in order to figure that out?
Yeah, so this was this is definitely more of a solution architect kind of challenge. Which is especially why I was encouraged to like go for it. But if I turn my wheels a little too long, definitely feel free to reach out. So it was a great experience for expanding my skill set, both from a like model design standpoint as well as model building. Definitely.
Thank you. Very good. I liked it.
Thank you so much.